CDI Oversight Committee meeting number 25. Been at this for a little bit. Welcome, and we're glad you're here. Again, I'm Dr. Stephen Holt. I'm the facilitator of the meeting tonight. If you have not gotten an agenda, I would ask you to grab one, and then also make sure that you've signed in for tonight's meeting. A couple of logistic issues: bathrooms right outside the door, ladies up the stairs, men's down the stairs. I think that's essentially what we need to cover. We're going to be following the agenda pretty strictly tonight. A few things that are significant to do. But before we do that, we're going to do roll call. So if your microphone in front of you does not have a red dot, it is not on. So if you press it to turn it on to speak, and you can then turn it off afterward. So roll call, beginning to my right.
Joanna Figueiras from Prosper, Portland. If you haven't heard me. Joanna Figueiras from Prosper, Portland.
Jennifer Huang.
Dorsey Johnson.
Choniso Suaila Smith.
Ebony Amato.
Maurice Romming.
Gwen Thompson.
And then we have on the phone Michael Harper, and I'm sure others.
Can you say it again?
Michael Harper.
Welcome, Michael, via phone. Glad you are with us. I'm going to go to our co-chair, Gwen Thompson, for item number 1, around meeting minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Can everyone please locate their minutes? And then we'll take roughly 3 minutes to read those. Please indicate if you need additional time. 1 more minute. Are there any questions on the minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion to pass the minutes?
Motion to approve?
It's been motioned and approved.
Second the motion.
Second by Shanisha. Now, for everybody who's in favor, just raise your green card. Excellent. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is Prosper Portland update, the North-Northeast project manager position. And then we'll follow suit from there. So, Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna Fugaitas. I have stepped in as the project manager since Kim Moreland has left. My information is at the bottom of the agendas, and you can feel free to come talk to me if you want my card or something.
No, Kimberly Moreland has resigned and left Prosper Portland, and she did at the end of December. That's when she made that transition, and Joanna stepped in as the interim, or has been positioned as the interim director. So, hello, Joanna.
My director's right.
Project manager. Project manager. Hi, Lisa. How are you, Lisa? So Joanna will be your contact and direct contact for this particular work. And of course, you've got several other Prosper Portland staff, if you'd hold your hand up, Prosper Portland staff that support this work. Any questions, Shanisha? Yeah. 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 Thank you for that. Next item, future meeting dates. Diana, did you want to talk about that?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? It is on. Hello. There we go. Hi, how are you all? I haven't seen you since December during our work session meeting. I am just here to let you all know that we have confirmed our regular second Tuesdays meeting dates. You can see them listed March 11th and May 13th. Both of them will be held here at the same location at Billy Webb. Regular meeting times 6 to 8. And then I know that we'll talk about it a little bit later in the agenda, but we also just wanted to confirm that the March 11th meeting date for the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is earlier in the afternoon of our same meeting date. And so that will be when the recommendations are presented to the board. So I know that we'll spend some time talking about that later tonight. And then also just an update on our online hub platform where we can share all of these documents and y'all can have conversations and keep track of everything. There was a Microsoft Team link shared and some instructions shared, but if y'all have any questions or any issues, feel free to email me or Joanna and let us know. Yeah, thank you all. Oh, sure.
When the meeting for the Board of Commissioners at Prosper Portland, will you tell us what time that's going to be at?
Yeah, I've got another slide on a little bit later, but it is from 3 till 5:30 off the top of my head. But I can, we'll talk about it a little bit later, and I've got the date written down so you can double check that time.
Yeah, it's right there on the screen.
Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Thank you.
And either of the members who just came in, if you will acknowledge yourselves and then be free to also grab something to eat. So, beginning with you, Quentin, if you would identify that you are present, please.
Quentin Blanton is Is that all I need to say? Okay.
Kara Stoudemire Phillips.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda, Community Livability Grant reporting.
Okay. So last week, was it, oh gosh, what day was that? Thursday? Okay, so last Thursday, our CLG committee met, and that included myself, Gwen, and Jennifer. And then there were 3 Prosper Portland staff there, the non-voting staff, but the 3 of us composed the group that voted. And just a quick recap, we had 14 applications submitted this year, and the total amount requested was $1,017,301. So that was, oh, it's up there, okay. And we decided to award, we're recommending that 11 projects move forward to the executive director for funding. And the total budget that we have for this year is $300,000. However, the total that we are recommending with those 11 projects is about $346,000. So what would happen if all of those are approved by the executive director, by Kimberly and team, then we would, then the amount over $300,000 would be taken from the budget next year. And this is regular practice, so it's nothing, this happens pretty much every year, that we propose a little bit more, and it funds are found out of the next year's budget. So the award announcements are expected in mid-March. We felt really good about the organizations, the 14 applications that were submitted. We had a wide range of nonprofit organizations. Of course, we had many churches, and we talked about that in our meeting, that for many churches, they are not able to apply for grants or for funding from corporations because most organizations do not fund religious organizations. So for a lot of them, this is one of the only opportunities to receive, to request and receive funding for infrastructure, actual structural infrastructure, and building onto their buildings. Childcare, we saw a few childcare. Then other nonprofits that were just looking to enhance their current spaces. Something that we always do keep in mind is that we want all you all to know that it has to be, you either have to own your property or be in a lease agreement of at least 20 years. So these are not just spaces that people are renting or leasing for a short term. So it's long-term planning. So I think that's about it. Anyone have any questions? Okay.
Questions at all?
Thank you, Jennifer and Gwen, for being a part of this. I think this is Gwen's first year serving on this, and Jennifer, 3rd year, correct? Second year. It's my 10th year, and it's had many iterations, but 10th year serving in this capacity. So the table is open, and there's welcome opportunity for more people to be a part of it. It's just a one-day, one afternoon. We ask that you commit maybe 2 hours, right, Maurice? You've been on it many times. About 2 hours to go over. So maybe 2 hours before the day of, so that you actually have time to go through all of the applications, and then maybe 2 hours the day of to do all the rankings and finalize our selection. So it's not a huge commitment, but it's always great to have more folks at the table with sharing their ideas and sharing their knowledge of the organizations. Because it's really, the application and everything that you see on paper, but we do a lot of talking about what we know about the organizations, if we've been there, if we know people there, because that community knowledge is vital to making these decisions.
Excellent. Gwen? She was deferring to you, but that's okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to appreciate you guys. I was there just observing, and it was really great to see how much you guys care, and all, like you just mentioned, Kara, is all the knowledge of the community and the needs, and who is able to do more, who is getting from other places. So it was really, really great. And to see how you guys were able to play with trying to help as many businesses as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Gwen.
I think that the community, and certainly this committee, is familiar with the objective of supporting small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and the lift that is required to take a relatively small amount of money and ensure that as many businesses are supported as possible. I really appreciated that in this meeting, rather than funding, let's say, 4 of the strongest applications, we were very intentional in trying to support as many of the applications or the companies as possible. And so I really feel good about the outcome of that meeting. However, I would like to see more applications come in the future. And so as a committee, I think it behooves us to be familiar with all of the nonprofits in the North and Northeast area and to make sure that we do our level best to get the word out. But again, great job, team, this time.
Thank you very much, Shanisha.
My question has to do with, is there something visual that you have that you can let us know what the qualifiers were and things of that nature, so we can have, so we are able to see not only that these people were able to get the funding, but what were the qualifiers that allowed them to be able to have it? And is there something that did not allow other organizations to be able to have it? And just something visual. And do you have that?
I don't think we can share the names of the organizations today. That's why I didn't have, that's why we said 14 applied. But as far as like the 3 areas that we voted in to give them points, I'm sure we can share that. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you, okay. The areas, yeah. Is that, yes, okay. So and we'll pass this down to you. So we can absolutely share this. This is the rating. So the proposals were graded on the proposal, which is how does the project foster vibrant and healthy neighborhood and improve the prosperity of area residents and businesses. The project must be permanent, real property, as we shared before. And there was 5 points available for that. So you get 5 points for your overall proposal. And the second area, you could get 10 points in community benefit, and that includes benefit priority populations, communities of color, or people in with low income, improve access to jobs and workforce development services, support wealth creation opportunities for residents and small business owners, honors and enhances the neighborhood's cultural diversity and history, delivers a community asset tailored to the community's expressed priorities and opportunities, so 10 points in that area. The third area is community support and partnerships, and this is where we, and some organizations did submit this and some didn't, and you can submit letters from other organizations supporting you getting a grant. So forms innovative partnerships and or builds community capacity to address community needs. Community members are knowledgeable and supportive of projects, so those are letters of support. And leverage other resources, so, and that includes volunteer labor, donated material, donated professional services, or cash. So we looked to that to see how much they had really gone out to look to the community to see if what they're doing is a need. So 5 points in that area. And then the last area was project feasibility. So that includes completedness and feasibility of concept plan, budget, and schedule. Project demonstrates ability to be completed in a timely manner. And when we say timely manner, we want it to be completed before the next cycle begins. Because we've had many organizations that have applied and then applied again the next year, and they may not have completed the last project, but they're seeking to start a new project, and we prefer them to complete a project before they start a new project. Applicant has gathered adequate financial resources to achieve the project apart from the CLG grant. So we do, if we want the people to look for other funding as well, because some of the projects are very large amounts. And so we, as we've shared before, we want to really spread the wealth as much as we can. So we do look to some of those larger projects to look for other funding sources. And last, organizational capacity to deliver project and support ongoing community benefit, successful experience on previous similar projects. So again, that's what we were talking about before, how, if you're a repeat requester, what has been your, how have you completed your projects over in the past?
And just one more question I had is how
And
much?
I'll pass this down so you can see.
Okay. how much of the community was aware that there was that much funding available for them? How
So
did we go out to be able to make sure that awareness was?
Yes, and I do not have that list, but no, Sue's not here. So they, and this was shared at these previous meetings, exactly how the word is gotten out, and I don't have those notes with me, but we have had those reports from Prosper Portland of how they get the word out about this, and they've also asked us as a committee to help to spread the word too. And so I have put it out on, people are familiar with Good People PDX, I put it out there, where there's a lot of professionals on that. I also shared this with the, at MODA, my day job. We're a member of the Nonprofit Association of Oregon, and so I did share that with Nonprofit Association of Oregon as well. So as Gwen said, I think the onus is also on us to get the word out to community members and to organizations that we know that would be seeking those funds. But I can ask Sue to at least share if we can get her to share that in an email to the group, how Prosper Portland got the information out.
Excellent. Any other questions from the CDI? All right. We are moving right along. Item number 5, fun item, elections. We are at the moment of electing or selecting new co-chairs or co-chairs to take on this next term. According to the charter, the co-chair position is an annual position. It is renewed annually. The prior co-chairs can select and elect to be re-elected should they choose. But every year we will go through the process of selecting those co-chairs. I'll talk a little bit about our process in a moment, but before I do that, I'd like either or both of our co-chairs to kind of talk a little bit about what this work looks like, what their experience has been.
So this has been quite the lift, let's put it that way. I expected that co-chairing the North-Northeast CDI would be both fun in building relationships with servant leaders of our community, and that it would be challenging in that this work can be complex, as it is fundamentally political. I have to say, I've really enjoyed my year as a co-chair. I've learned that there is true meaning when you say beloved community. This community, the Northeast Portland area, is very, very beloved. And that was made clear to me in all of the interactions that I've had with community members, organizations. Mr. Washington, I'm looking right at you as I say that, and Lisa. We do love this community, and as a result, we work hard to make the very best decisions that we can. In leading this committee, I will say that I felt like the biggest impact that I could make is to increase our collaboration efforts with not only Prosper, but with each other. And I think I did a relatively decent job at that. Outside of that, I've learned a great deal from all of you, even our newest members. I continue to learn, and I hope to continue to work with you and learn. Thanks.
Thank you.
So what I learned is that I have an awesome co-chair, and so she makes it a lot easier. But I would say that it's really hard in the sense that what we're trying to do is make sure that we lift up the entire community, not just segments of it. And one of the things I realize is that there's a lot of meetings that happen. There are a lot of things that are pulling us in different directions. I really appreciate this group because I do think that we do a good job of gelling together and talking in one voice. And yeah, I just appreciate the support that I've gotten from all of you as we kind of went through this year. I wasn't expecting as much support as I got, and I just want to thank everybody for that. For the new people, welcome aboard. And yeah, I think that you'll enjoy it. You're going to find that we're a great group, and we all want to do well. So thank you.
Well, let's express some appreciation to the co-chairs and what they've done this year. Thank you. I appreciate you giving yourselves to this work. And it is that. It is work. So, how we are going to go about selecting our next co-chairs, again, according to the bylaws, there is no limitation around how many times someone can be a co-chair. It's just that at the end of the year, then there's the opportunity for others to step in and participate, and or those who have been in the seat to continue. And my request will be to identify yourself three ways. Well, really two ways. First, I'm going to ask the co-chairs who would like to continue. Then I'm going to ask those who do not want to be considered, and then those who want to be considered. Because if you want to be considered, we're going to give you about a minute to kind of explain why you're interested in stepping into this seat. Not so much from this isn't your political posturing tonight. So you didn't come prepared with a speech in advance. That's fine. Because I don't think that's the ultimate requirement of the work with this group. Really, it's about stepping into that space of hanging out with us a lot. You get to see us a lot, and that's pretty exciting, I think. But your enthusiasm was really overwhelming. Thanks, guys. The co-chairs, you had your opportunity just to say, yes, we loved. Okay, they didn't love hanging out. I saw Gwen kind of roll her eyes. So, co-chairs, if you would like to be considered for continuing on, if you would just acknowledge that by raising of your hand if you'd like to continue.
Well, I would say, yeah, thanks. I would say I would continue. If there is two of the members that do want to be chair, then I am also willing to take a back seat to that to allow new people to fill the position. But if there's not, then I would like to continue.
Excellent, thank you. Who would not want to be considered as a co-chair? Who is not interested in that? Okay. So we have Michael Harper. We heard you. We heard you, sir, yes. Jennifer, did I see you? Very good, yes. Jennifer, okay.
Some people here today, their terms are up in 3 months. And so it wouldn't work with the 1 year commitment. Yeah. As I understand it, at least.
Yes, that's another item for us to begin talking about as we're coming to the end of terms for some people who want to, as it were, age off, and then others coming in. So thank you for bringing that up. That wasn't on the note and the agenda for tonight. Go ahead, Dorsey. Yeah.
So if we can write down for next, to put on our agenda to start working on a subcommittee. So I'll reach out to Joanna so we can start looking for people to start in May, so that way we're not short people in May.
Yeah. Yeah, for those, again, who don't want to continue in the seat, thank you very much. All right, and those who are interested in co-chairing. All right. Okay. So Ebony and Quentin are considering. So what we will do then, John,
Can I just clarify what is your consideration? Because I wasn't.
Microphone? Mike. It's okay.
Considering the current paradigm of them leaving in 3 months, and I would consider co-chairing.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say, if you two both want to co-chair, I could roll my name off as well.
Okay. All right, so then we've got three. Gwen, Quentin, and no. Right, but three individuals who were interested in co-chairing. But Gwen doesn't want.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
so
I
sorry.
missed
I
it.
apologize for the confusion. I have enjoyed my year, but I am absolutely not a candidate for re-election. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So technically, then we've got Ebony and Quentin that are interested, and Maurice is retracting his name. Okay. So technically, we have two candidates for 2 positions? I think we are pretty much clear. Then, even without going through a voting process, 2 candidates for 2 positions. Comments, questions, thoughts, without putting you on the spot and even having to have you give speeches. Shucks.
Do we need,
Well, let's,
do we need to vote for
I
for
think
the
you can
minutes?
go ahead, for the sake of the minutes, let's write in the names. Let's follow our process, absolutely. Michael, for the sake of communication, Quentin and Ebony have volunteered to be co-chairs, and now their names are being written down. They are the 2 candidates who have stepped forward for the 2 positions. And so,
Excellent. I make a motion we accept both of their induction and we approve their position.
excellent, excellent. Thank you, Michael. We are following the protocol of writing the names down. We pretty much know what the conclusion is. Yep. For the sake of our minutes, we have our official ballot, and let us congratulate the 2 new co-chairs for the Northeast CDI. Way to get started. Way to get started. Wonderful. All right, next item is item number 6. December 19th, we gathered at June Key Delta for a work session. And this is to remind us a little bit of that work session, which was to cover, if I recall right from my notes, geographic amendment criteria priorities, and then to talk about a few other items of maximum indebtedness and for a URA selection recommendation. And then there was some time where the CDI also worked as a group together. Did you want to brief or remind or talk through any of the things that were determined, discussed, processed? Gwen.
There could have been slight confusion. So the minutes that we read were actually the minutes from the work session. So if you wouldn't mind, I think it behooves us to take a fresh look at those minutes as it relates to voting. And then our wonderful Jennifer has offered to give some context for each of the issues separately. So whichever ones we're voting on, if we could have you provide some context for that, and then we'll vote afterwards.
So prior to the vote, that'll be our next item. It was just if there's any discussion around the actual work session, anything that needs to be refreshed, recouped, reminded, or that which needed to be talked through, and then we will move to determination around the vote. So, Joanna.
Can I just clarify, you should have 2 minutes in front of you, one for November and one for December.
Yes.
Thank you.
Quentin.
Just, there was one part where we talked about the Williams and Russell property, and there was something in there about a possible zone change to CM3. So I just wanted to know, like, is there any way we could get more information about that? Because I know that, or what it would mean even, because I know zoning is a big deal. So that part kind of doesn't really I don't remember everything that we talked about regarding that.
Excellent. You have a representative from this committee that sits on the project working group, and that's Karis. And Karis will weigh in on. So that's
I will
wonderful.
share what I know. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was presented to the project working group, but it has not. There's been no decision made at this point. It was presented.
So there was
Yeah.
there was a
There
presentation
was a
officially.
Yeah, but no decision has been made. Is that correct? No, not yet. Yeah, that's what I said. No decision has been made.
So
Oh, okay.
for the sake of recording,
Thank you.
thank you, gallery. Appreciate it. The presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission happened yesterday. Determination has not transpired
Right.
at this point.
So we can't.
But there is a recommendation to support from the project working group. There is a recommendation to support and from Legacy Health Systems to support the zone change to CM3. CM3 zoning offers more opportunity and variety of what something can potentially be built on the site. So
So it's a
that
positive.
recommendation has been made.
It would be a positive. Be a positive for all involved.
So, looking at the
Maurice.
zone change, what is the project working group hoping to achieve? I know that it allows more opportunities, but can you kind of elaborate on what those opportunities are?
I cannot. I'm sorry. No, it was presented, and it was presented. I don't think that we're at a point of. I don't think that the group is at a point of knowing what's going to be on the property to even make that decision. But overall, it presents more opportunities, so it just gives more options. At this point, is that any different than what you're thinking, Leslie, or that it's being presented as it gives more opportunity?
I'm sorry, I've been directed by the facilitator not to talk, so.
Okay. Beyond that, or you've been at these meetings. I mean,
Yes.
beyond that, I don't think that the group is at a point of saying we're going to be CM3 because it can provide this. It can provide more opportunity.
I can give a little
Yeah.
context. Lisa, could you come to the table, please? And help. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, if you would introduce yourself for the sake of recording. Thank you.
Lisa Alboff with Prosper Portland. So right now, the Williams and Russell site is zoned institutional. So when it gets built, it can get built tied back to the rest of the Legacy property. So if you imagine Legacy has an entire campus, so they don't, it would never be treated as kind of an individual project. It would be treated as part of the overall campus development. By moving into a neighborhood commercial zoning, it aligns more, what we heard from BPS, with an individual project that would support the housing, workforce, and community spaces priorities that the project working group has heard from the community as the priorities for the site. And it would be treated separately from Legacy's campus in total.
And I think the
Does
thing
that-
I would add to it is from the conversation from Charles Wilhoit, who is the chair of Legacy, and then also from Brian Tourette, and I can't remember who else was at the meeting, that part of the support is to distinguish that space of land from Legacy. That was part of their reason to do so. So to begin to distinguish this part of the property from the overall campusing, which is why they're supporting the zoning. So that's just to give you context from what we heard, from what they had to say. Again. And since I facilitate the process, I'm just reporting out what has transpired to give you actual information, not determined perspective. So, Gwen.
At the meeting yesterday, who actually presented? Was it
I was not.
Prosper Housing Bureau?
I
or-
think it was Nan Stark. Bryson was there to support. Bryson Davis, who's a co-chair of the project working group, was there to support. I don't know if he presented. He did present. Yes. Okay, I wasn't there. I don't know. Okay, so thank you. Microphone. Why don't you just hang out here? Just stay here for a little bit. Just come and join us at the table.
So conventionally what will happen is that the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, who leads zoning and long-range planning for the city, will present from a staff perspective, and then there's community testimony or public testimony.
Quentin and then Shanisha.
I think my biggest fear with the zoning and why I brought it up is because I wanted to know, like, what does it have to do with opportunity zones and how those will kind of interact? Because I know that opportunity zones can be very harmful to low-income communities and different various populations. So I just wanted to be sure
Yeah.
that it didn't have anything to do with that, because it's like, you know, accelerated gentrification, basically.
So land use zoning, which is the action that was before, that happened yesterday, is completely separate from opportunity zones. So opportunity zones is a federally and then a state designated area, and land use zones are defined by the city of Portland through the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability.
Quentin, your name tag, please. Your name tag, thank you. Shanisha.
For me, I'm trying to catch up because I've kind of been absent on the understanding of what's going on with that zoning. And so, in my mind, I thought at one particular point that Legacy had let go of a lot of that property so that it could be put in the hands of some of the lower income areas and redeveloped for that reason. And it just, and I don't feel like that's something that's gonna happen, or am I wrong? Is that something that is gonna give opportunity, like Quentin had said, to those people who have not had access to developmental projects within that particular area? Is Legacy going to let go of a lot of that area so that it can be developed
So
by minorities as well, or has that been changed, or, because I've been absent, so I haven't been able to understand what's
So
going on.
I'm gonna take a stab, and maybe you can also because I wanna be, so the property that Legacy has, offered to the project working group and to return back to the community is a 1.7 acre site that is the Williams and Russell site.
Yeah, we're just talking about that
So,
particular site.
though there's other spaces that you see that are open land, those are not pieces of property that we are discussing at all with Williams Russell. It's just that one plot of land.
Re-given back to the Legacy area, or they
No,
just gave
no.
a small area?
It was a small area that has been allotted, yes. I won't say small, 1.7 acres has been
Which
allotted.
is,
But yes, there is other land that there is no conversation about any development of of those other parcels of land that still remain open.
okay, and is it gonna be designated to those people, the minority groups and stuff, or is it just gonna be, that hasn't been
That
decided?
has not been decided. That's what is in process right now.
Okay,
So the 1.7 acres has been committed to the Williams and Russell site has been committed to the development process that has been going on for the community engagement process to determine the priorities of what should go there.
Exactly.
And then once the priorities have been determined, which has happened, the next phase is the determination from those priorities of how to then go into development, which are community space, affordable housing, and
Very similar to what we have back there on our, what is it? Where's the thing? The little brochure that that our committee operates off of. I will say that if you overlay that on what came out of the community engagement process a few weeks ago, it's very similar.
and is there a community awareness
goals.
campaign that the community knows that there is availability?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
There's
really?
been, yes. Yeah, there was how many people at the?
there has
community
been
engagement?
over 600 responses and feedback. And then the most recent big community event was in January, where community members came together. So there's been quite a campaign from a variety of ways to make people aware of what's been going on. And this has been happening for about 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And then I would just add, so we've been working in 3 areas in terms of community. One was the community event, one was a open survey, kind of across the community. And then the project working group is made up of multiple community groups, and so individual community groups, including the Seoul District, including SEI, kind of held very specific targeted outreach to kind of folks who are within their organization, with the goal of targeting both kind of youth, business folks, elders, et cetera.
And then there's been communication with the co-chairs
Yes.
in regard to the process, and then effort around bringing the co-chairs together. Maurice, you and I have talked, so you're shaking your head no. But I'm just saying that there's
Well,
been
also, yes.
communication around the work.
Right, and Gwen and I have met with their coach, with Lakeitha, and had a conversation about what each group is doing. But there's been a tremendous amount of community outreach.
Okay, maybe I'm just lost, sorry.
No, that's good questions. Jennifer? Yeah. Mhm.
So I think that right now there's, from what I'm gathering and from prior conversations and what I heard at our work session, not enough is known about the property. And a lot of things are still in development and still in movement for us to make the determination whether or not it is in alignment with the action plan or is not in alignment with the action plan. I think before we can determine those things, property ownership, where the actual boundary line is, these are just some of the things that we talked about during the work session for context for those people who weren't there. Where that boundary line is, the property ownership, and the community benefits, and then a development impact study, all of those things are pending or in the works. And so it's okay to feel uncomfortable if you are feeling uncomfortable at this moment to say, yes, it does fit with the action plan, or no, it doesn't fit with the action plan, because I don't think we have any of that information just yet. I think what we need to determine is, because I think that's what our oversight committee is for, to determine whether or not this motion supports it. And so I think if we're uncomfortable, or if we don't have enough information to make that determination, it's okay to say that. I don't know that it would necessarily mean that this project isn't going to support the action plan, but we can't say definitively with the information given that it will. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Janisa, were you done? Thank you.
There was a couple of things from that I looked at, some of the documents, and then from the December work session too. One of them was, it says, this is in the letter to Gwen and Maurice when they were the co-chairs. And one of the things it says about the TIF, increasing the maximum indebtedness, is that the Northeast Housing Strategy and an additional $20 million will be available for Prosper Portland to invest in other community development priorities in line with the Northeast Community Development Initiative. And then the second part of that is TIF in the past, long-term black. I think this was something that Kim Branham said at the last meeting. She was saying TIF in the past, long-term black low-income have not benefited and have even been harmed. The Northeast CDI came together acknowledging this and are seeking ways to create process to ensure that amendments are fulfilling that goal. So I guess my question would be is, what would that other, if it is expanded by 65 million, the maximum indebtedness, I mean, the 45 million, it looks clear what that would be used for, but I was just wondering, what are those other things that 20 million would go towards, and then what kind of processes are being created to make sure that the history doesn't repeat itself? Like, if the maximum indebtedness is increased, you know, how will we know that it's not going to hurt those same communities again, or what is being done?
So the extent of the conversations that we've had, so it sounds like your question is mostly around the TIF resources that Prosper would receive and not housing. Okay, because I don't know if there are, yeah, that's great.
Thank you for joining us, Leslie. Appreciate it.
The extent of the conversation that we've had internally, if there are additional resources via increase in maximum indebtedness, is that we would put it to the same 5 goals as the North-Northeast CDI, because those are the 5 goals that we heard from the community.
Microphone.
You guys would have like a separate action plan that you would work on just as Prosper, like outside of us, or you would add that money to what we're doing?
We haven't even talked that far. What we have defined is we heard the 5 priorities from the community, and we know those are the 5 priorities that came out of a community conversation to make sure that the investment was done differently than it's been done in the past.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I can speak towards that a little bit as well, given from our conversation during the work session. So I think it's our understanding that the 45 is going to go to PHB to support 3 to 4 projects that they've already identified and studied, and are making the case for increasing the maximum indebtedness. And then the 20 million would be, and then the 45 million would be allocated, and the responsibility of the North-Northeast Housing Oversight Committee. Yep. And then the 20 would then be allocated to our committee, and oversight and accountability to Prosper Portland. And then oversight and accountability of those funds would be the responsibility of the North-Northeast CDI Oversight Committee.
So we haven't had that, and I guess this is where things become interrelated. We are in conversations with the project working group around what survives if there are resources that go to that project. Okay. And I mean, ultimately, it's the question. We have another community group that is an oversight group in terms of what happens with that land. And if there is a need for investment in terms of what happens with that land, and they are negotiating that agreement, whether it's the community benefits or the development, making sure that they also have a role to play. So I think this is a really important, we're not there yet, right? Because we haven't even gotten before our board, but I think it's gonna be a really important next step conversation, both with the project working group and with the North-Northeast CDI, about how does oversight of that investment happen, knowing that it has to happen in alignment with the CDI 5 goals.
Thank you. Maurice?
And so if I'm hearing correctly, so the 20 million hasn't really been decided on where that's going as of yet. And I'm also hearing that there hasn't been any real decision on the direction of where the Hill Block site's going yet. But we're being asked to vote, and my understanding is that we're responsible for trying to make sure and implement those 5 goals. And that you're saying the 20 million, although it might not come to this committee, is going to adhere to those 5 goals. So we're making potentially a secondary committee.
Well, I just want to be clear that there is a committee that is charged with stewarding the land, the Williams and Russell land, into a project. So that committee exists. So we're not creating. There's another project working group that ultimately has oversight of what happens with the legacy land as a resource, in the same way that the TIF resources that you have oversight over is a resource.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I understand that currently we're responsible for the North-Northeast URA, and the Hill Block site is not part of that URA. And so we are that oversight committee. And if I'm hearing you correctly, expanding the URA will also expand a secondary committee that would potentially be doing the same as this committee with $20 million.
What I am expressing is we don't know yet. I mean, and I think it's a really important conversation. I just want to map out what the maximum indebtedness increase conversation is going to look like. Is a year-long process that goes before our board and goes before city council. So we are making decisions incrementally rather than kind of putting in place an entire structure if we don't know the outcome of that decision.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. Okay. I was just getting some clarity, and I guess, I'll leave it at that.
Good conversation. Gwen, and then I'll come back to you, Jennifer.
So I apologize in advance. I will do my best to articulate these questions, but this is relatively new for me. I first want to acknowledge that on multiple occasions, it was stated by people that we rely on that the 20 million would come under auspices of this group. So it is a change, and I really would like that to be acknowledged as a change. That's one. Second, maybe you guys can help me, but I believe that the project working group was created to lead the efforts to decide what would be on the property. But this, for me, is a fundamental change. If they're funded in this way, they have money to spend. That's different than making decisions on what goes on the property, and those decisions come back to this committee for us to speak to.
Okay.
That takes this committee out of it. And so those two fundamental changes are not minor, and it makes it more difficult to vote. I would like that to be stated.
Leslie Goodlow, Portland Housing Bureau. I think that maybe this is a language issue, because the project working group, the goal is for them to get to a development, is to come up with an RFP to select a development team for a project to be built. And part of that is looking at funding, looking at community benefits. So it encompasses all the pieces that go into a project being built. So that's why I'm involved, because if housing is gonna be there, how are we gonna pay for the housing? And so.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing, correct. And that's why your group is involved, why you have a person sitting on the committee, so that they're able to get information and understand what the impacts are, both for the project to be within the URA, being outside of the URA, what the impacts are to the community. And so my struggle, and I'm gonna be totally transparent with you all tonight, because I'm tired, is that this is not competing. The goal of the CDI, the Northeast Housing Oversight Committee, and the project working group is to benefit the Black community. So this is not like this is gonna benefit the people sitting on that group. This is all of us trying to coordinate and ensure that all of these things fit together. And so that's why the Northeast Housing Oversight Committee, we have a representative. Jillian speaks to what's going on and tries to ensure that our committee is aware of what the impacts are, and what the priorities have been. And housing has been the number one priority since we started this project. And so I guess that's just my struggle, is that whenever this discussion comes up, it sounds like we're competing and like we have different goals, when it should all be this project is gonna benefit the community. So we need to figure out how we're going to fund it, and not how we're gonna keep from funding it.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more, and I also feel like this is a good time to acknowledge Dr. Holt, who's been working on behalf of creating that kind of synergy. I think the synergy is imperative, and I like the idea of us coming together. And my questions were not intended to suggest differently.
I'm sorry, and I wasn't intending that to you specifically. It's just whenever I've been part of the conversation or I've been at the meetings, the feeling to me, and I'm just gonna personalize it to me, the feeling to me is that these groups are competing, and it shouldn't be. It should be, how can we work together to make this project successful, not how can we keep it from being successful.
I love that, and if you don't mind, I think that what happens on this side is that we feel, and I don't want to speak for everyone, so please don't allow me to do that. This is a tough group, so I'm sure that they won't. We seem to have the need to project and imagine that if hypothetically things happen the way that they happened before to create this group, that the onus is on us. And so generally speaking, the questions are related to that, as well as our concerns are related to that. I'm very cautious to add a negative tone to this meeting. I don't want this meeting to be negative, and so I don't want to repeat any of the claims or criticisms that have happened in the past, but I do want to just allow for that conversation to happen.
Absolutely.
And why we might be precautious.
Excellent. Thank you. Quentin?
Just to touch on what you just said, I think that some people look at the things that are proposed and various things like that, and we all have our different views on what benefits the community the most or what we view as progress. So the questions that I ask and have asked tonight, they're not necessarily to make it so that we're competing or there's, some type of strife or anything like that either. But at the same time, our names are on this, and we can't just go along with whatever people say, especially when we have an inclination that it's not the right thing either. So I that's all I wanted to say about that. And, there's just different ways of viewing what's necessarily beneficial.
Appreciate that. Maurice?
And I'll echo that a little bit. We're not competing. We're all here. No one's getting paid to do this. So I just want to say that we don't look at this as a competition, who wins, who loses. How we're looking at it is saying, how can we make sure that these resources benefit our community? And I think the challenge that I think we're kind of faced with is we feel like there's questions, right? And when we say like, okay, what is the vision of the site? And it's like, well, that hasn't been determined yet. And I think, that might come off a little aggressive. It's not. We're just trying to make sure that our understanding aligns with our priorities that we were slated to do. And so, it becomes, like I said, I don't look at it as we're competing against this group or that group. To me, that doesn't even really make sense, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to go home with a prize and say I won.
And they're both Prosper Portland groups.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. And so, but what I would say is that we just feel passionate about what we're charged with, and we want to ensure that we're living up to the expectations, because I think I've had a number of conversations with committee members, and our biggest concern is we don't want to be walking down the street 5 years from now and say, oh yeah, you guys were the ones that blew that ABC, and you guys messed that up, and why did you do that when you didn't have any information? And so it becomes, so we get put in this odd situation where, I have people at my gym hit me up on stuff, and I have people that walking down the street and they say, and I get concerned because I want to be proud of the work that we're doing here 5 years from now. And so people say, yeah, you guys did the right thing, rather than sit there 5 years from now and say, yeah, we there's some pressure. I felt like we just went that direction and it didn't work out the way it should have. And then, that's what I think the majority of our committee, if we seem like we're competing, we're not. We're just trying to look out for what we feel like the community members that we see every day, what they want to see happen on these projects and how they want to see these dollars deployed.
Shanisha, thank you.
I'm in agreement with most of us, and especially even Leslie, what you have to say in terms of being a collective. At the same time, I'm still concerned about how much the community is aware of there are projects that are available, because lots of times, I know you said there's been 500 people here, been told and everything, but at the same time, I still think there's a gap with organizational awareness as in relationship to community-based awareness. And I think that right now, what you're striving for is important, and I'm just worried that the community doesn't know enough that there might be availability of funding or availability of, and it's not just for African-American people, but for the community itself that needs to be able to have those available funds or placements or whatever, and that little piece of property and stuff, how is that going to be of value for those people who have the greatest needs?
Thank you very much. Michael, did you want to say anything before I go to the next?
No, it's great just to listen and hear what the ideas and the concerns that the committee has. So thank you very much, Doctor.
You're welcome.
I just want to reiterate that I think from my perspective, our hesitation isn't because we're trying to stall a project or isn't because we're trying to compete for funding because that's already been allocated. I think our hesitation is we approach it in the same, or at least I approach it in the same aspect that I would approach the community livability grant applications, right? It's like, has the property been defined? Yes. Okay, great. Is the project sound? Is it defined? Yes. Then there are these criteria in which you can evaluate it in transparency to see whether or not it aligns with the action plan. And there are just certain elements of this project that aren't quite yet defined to a certain standard that we use for other applications for us to feel comfortable saying, yes, absolutely. So that's why we come with all these different questions. And it appears like we're stalling, but we're really just asking the same questions that we would ask any other applicant.
So at this point, that the project working group hasn't even asked for any money. They've not asked for any money, so I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure what the concern is, because even if the property comes into the URA, it doesn't guarantee them funding from you. They still have to go.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same information I said in December.
Yeah.
They still have to go through the same process to get funding, except for from us, because
Right.
we have guaranteed so much money for affordable housing. And so, again, that committee's been meeting for 2 years. The information is available. What's going on? I can tell you from I sat on the community engagement work group, and I sent out 6,000 emails to people on our email list. I know that the Urban League had events. I know that Pastor Mondaday had events. I know that SEI had events. Pretty much every organization that's represented on the project working group had events to try to ensure that people got information about what's going on with the project working group and with that piece of property. Now, of course, we can't reach every Black person. We can't reach every person, period, in town. That's just not possible. But we did, it was what's the word, a Herculean effort to try to ensure that people are aware of what's going on. And again, they meet every first Wednesday, and the meetings are
Open to
open.
everybody.
And people are welcome to come and hear what's going on. The information's on Prosper's website. So this is all public information. And again, I'm just speaking for myself, not Leslie Goodlow from the Portland Housing Bureau, and I know this is not public testimony right now, but I'm not sure what else can be said. Is bringing the property into the URA does not harm your committee. It doesn't take anything away from the CDI. It supports potential housing going on that property, even if you all don't give them a penny.
So let me say a couple of things, because there's kind of a theme that's happened, and everyone at the table knows that I facilitate and consult on the work. And I not only facilitate this group, I also consult with the project manager around this work. And so what I'm about to share is from the consultant's hat in this work. And let me preface it, and I hate to have to preface it other than for the sake of record, what I'm about to share is not to influence perspective. What I'm about to share is to be reflective of what is actual. So it's just facts-based information. The project working group, like you, are made up of people who are community representatives who have significant positions of influence and decision and are just as committed to making sure that the process is integrable, is accountable, is transparent, is thoughtful. We have SEI. We have Tony Hobson and Anthony Deloney. We have the Urban League, and so Danetta Monk represents them. We have Shabri Vickers, who represents Wells Fargo. We have Bryson Davis, who is representing the Seoul District, and Sussman Shank, attorneys. We have Lakeitha Davis, who is Lakeitha Elliott, who is a co-chair and who has been a community member at large, very involved in community activism and community concern. Justice Raji, Edie Mondane. It's made up of people like you who are concerned about their reputation just as you are. And so there is no effort to be frivolous, to skirt issues, to skip past processes. There has been a Herculean effort to think about this 1.7 acre. The other thing I think that's important for context and for information is the charge that was given to the group. The charge that was given to the group was community engagement, and from the community engagement, then to determine out of the priorities communicated by the community engagement what would make sense to go forward. And so part of the inability to say what would make sense is because the community engagement process had not happened. And so now that the community engagement process has happened, the priorities have been articulated, now decisions and determination around how best to implement on those priorities, they're now in a position to start making sense of. So that's been their process. They, like you, have had their parameters and their lanes and had to try to work within those lanes. But I wanted to make sure that and the other part of what we've attempted to do was to bring relationships of co-chairs into correspondence with one another so that each group is informed by what's happening. So we've had the co-chairs of the CDI come to the project working group, and we've had project working group co-chairs come to the CDI. So the effort has been to try to create this sense of how this work goes together in light of who's sitting at the table in order to benefit the community. I thought it was important that you have that context around the picture of what's being thought about. Lastly, in order for development to happen on that property, there has to be funding. And at this point, that's still an unknown reality. Provided it come into the URA, then that potentially releases some other sources of funding. One specific commitment is for affordable housing money, should that be what is ultimately determined to go on that site. Right now, that is the number one priority that's been identified from the community. So I thought it's important for you to hear that information and be aware. Again, from the standpoint of just telling the facts, the process, and the hope for the work. So,
Dr. Holt, can I add one thing? Because it was a really important conversation early on with the project working group. Because we appreciate kind of where the distress comes from in Prosper and in the city. The project working group is ultimately a deciding entity. They don't recommend to Prosper what happens with the land. They are ultimately deciding. So in terms of placing trust, you're placing trust into the project working groups, decision-making processes, public outreach processes, and what they come forward with on behalf of the community. That they were set up and chartered to be a decision-making entity. Now, they will come with a recommendation about does it go into a TIF district. They'll come with a recommendation about seeking public money. But what happens with that land is 100% being carried by them. So similar to the questions you had around like, what does this feel like to be out in the community representing what happens with that land? That is probably consistently a theme to the agenda with that same group of making sure that whatever happens with that land is something that they can defend and be proud of within the community.
Gwen, Maurice, Jennifer, and then Karis.
So I really like what you said, Lisa, and it addresses the question that I was going to ask. So I appreciate that, and I would like to just go back one more time to Leslie's comment, which I just think is super vital, which is that before they would spend money that this committee oversees, they would come to this committee, right?
Yes.
And Leslie, in all due respect, you had the impression that the additional $20 million would also be under the auspices of this committee, but it is not, based on our conversation today.
that was my assumption.
Right.
I had not had any conversation with anybody at Prosper, and since I don't work for Prosper, I can't speak. That was just strictly
Totally.
my assumption.
Right. And so you presented that to us a couple of times. I'm just establishing that the decision and the thought process that we have had have been based on that. So when I hear the project working group would be coming back to this committee and that we would help make those decisions, I'm now looking at $20 million that the project working group could use that wouldn't be under the auspices, and I just want to establish that. And if anybody has feedback for that, please give it to us. But within our vote, we want to make the vote within the parameters of the facts.
So I guess I want to, so the project, I want to keep, so the 32 million, if the project working group, if the property, there's going to be a bunch of ifs here, so I'm just going to, but if the property is amended into the district and the project working group wants to spend money in the next 6 months, they have to come back before this group. Because the additional resources, or they have to go back before the Housing Oversight Committee, because those additional resources wouldn't be available in that time period. I think it gets, right, I guess, does that make sense? Like, and so, right, I mean, like, you could guide what's happening during the pre-development phase, and we're trying to be cognizant, which is why we haven't landed on kind of what happens under which group is, and if they need resources ultimately to fund construction or development, which is at least a year or two out.
Right.
We also want to make sure that they know what resources they have to negotiate with, so long as they are meeting the North-Northeast CDI goals, which we think is consistent with you having oversight, right? Like, it's the project working group having oversight of a very particular piece of land, and not the 32 million, but incremental resources of some amount, and that they are able to negotiate with that, knowing that it has to further the North-Northeast goals, which is consistent, I think, with this body and your goals.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you.
I just had like a quick question. So I know that Legacy is committed to make sure this property gets, the project working group's able to do their work on this property. As far as, and again, I kind of look at it as direction. If Legacy was to get bought up by Kaiser, does the project working group, and Kaiser has, I'm just using a hypothetical. I'm not saying Kaiser, I don't have any inside ideas what Kaiser or Legacy are doing, right? So I want to be clear. But what assurances do we have to make sure that the process moves forward in the event of, changes in ownership of the land as it currently is?
I mean, there are even more hypotheticals with yours. But I'll chase that down. So right now, what exists is a memorandum of understanding that Legacy has signed that commits them to do nothing else with the land, but to put it into the project working group's hands to work with for a period of time. And, because it's pretty clearly stated at some point, we kind of aired everything, and from Prosper's perspective, there was legal standing on our part to pursue that land back on behalf of the community, which is how we ended up with the project working group and how we ended up with Legacy's partnership. Was in good faith. They wanted to be a good partner, and they put forward that land. We would continue to consider that our standing for making sure that that parcel of land remains with the community. Right? I mean, that's a kind of, it's a great question, and I'm not a lawyer, of kind of if Legacy transferred the land as part of becoming part of Kaiser, would our legal standing with Kaiser be the same as with Legacy? Mm-hmm. We can go back and ask our lawyers.
Yeah.
But right now, there is an MOU that Legacy has committed to and signed to.
Yep.
The board chair of Legacy has committed, and the mayor's office and Prosper Portland both kind of negotiated with Legacy to realize that formalized commitment.
Okay, thank you.
I can ask the lawyer what happens if it's like transfer of name from one entity to another, what happens with their land rights, but.
Perfect. Jennifer, Karis, and then.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, so I think it was, I think it's okay for us to say that, like, we recommend, because the, the North Northeast Action Plan says that, the remaining IKEA resources are meant to be directed towards long-term and former members of the community who have not benefited from the impact of public and private investments to date. And I think given that charge, it's okay for us to say that, given this action plan and the direction outlined in the action plan, we are not comfortable with any TIF resources being spent on legacy-owned property. I think that is okay for us to say and for us to express as a concern, because that would go in conflict with the action plan. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. But in general, the reason why I went and grabbed this is because the results or the conversation that and I will be perfectly honest, I do not go to all the project working group meetings, and I will say this, a lot of it is duplicative of the group that I was involved in that got to this committee. So this is like 5 years going for me. So the group that put together this, the project working group is doing that exact same process right now, in essence, right? So there, in the conversation at the December 19th meeting, the notes that I looked at pretty much came up with the same goals that we have here. They may not be in the same order, but the community need, the community benefit, the community ask has not changed. So the work that we are doing here, as Leslie said, is the same type of work. Now, I will be honest, and we can go on record in saying this, that there's been some adversary between individuals, but as far as the groups as a whole, we are working in concert for the community. So if there's been strife or whatever between you and someone else, then we really don't need that in the process of making this decision, because it is a community, a unified community goal of creating these 5 goals. So I just really want us to keep that in mind. If there's a level of trust level that you have with individuals in the other group or what have you, that's not what we're here for. So I just want people to keep that in mind as we look forward. These goals are the same as the project working group's goals.
Thank you very much. Maurice, you put yours up, then Jennifer, and then Quinn.
And I don't think that there's anything about trust. I think that we're a small enough community that I think we know each other on all the committees. So I just, I don't think that's the issue. I think what's happens is there's let's just say the water's a little mucky, and we're trying to see what direction it's going. We understand that everyone wants to go in the right direction, right? Some people are more risk adverse than others. Other people are like, I want to see land before we just start paddling in that direction. Or I want to see a bird, or I want to see something. And so I think what happens, I think with this committee, we're kind of looking at saying, okay, we just want more information. We want kind of a more direction. If there's a housing on the site, great, let's look at that. If the 20 million is going that's fine. But we want clarity. And I think what we're lacking through the meetings that I've been in is that clarity. I do have we all want good stuff. I get that. I don't think I think all of us are good people. I get that. But the clarity on how we get there hasn't truly been articulated in a way, for me anyways, that's like, okay, yes, I see the vision. And I think the meetings that have been going on, that's great. At some point, there's going to have to be a direction that's determined. And it would, I had a former journeyman that used to always sit there and say, a job worth doing is a job worth doing right. And so you get the information, if you get that information in order to do the job right. And I feel like it's a little challenging in one sense that it's just like, I feel like, I'm conflicted in this vote only because of this. I believe that all the people are trying to do good stuff, right? I'm also feeling like, I'm kind of like, well, trust that that's going to happen, but yet there's open air in between that, and I'm trying to fill that with something. And it would be great if, whether it's a project working group, whether it's Prosper, but someone to be able to fill in some of the blank spots to make
Okay.
sure that we feel comfortable.
Thank you. Gwen?
I can see that this is becoming circular, and it's still good conversation, but it is a bit circular. I want to take responsibility for asking for this recommendation vote to happen now. I felt like our committee was experiencing some pressure, anxiety related to both of the issues for vote, and I thought it was timely that we vote. So I want to take the responsibility for that, and I want to explain a little bit what brought me to that place. And that was that in voting, we're making a formal recommendation, and that recommendation can include line items that say, we vote yes or we vote no, but here are some concerns. It's not as if it's just one word. And I felt as if we could vote yes or no, but we could also stipulate some of these concerns that we're discussing. What's gonna happen with ownership? What's gonna happen with zoning? How does it affect, does it potentially affect the community negatively? Could it cause more displacement? To Quentin's point, so I don't want the committee to think that a vote just opens the door to all of these concerns happening, and I would like to also state that there does need to be some degree of trust, that nothing happens without trust. The building that we're sitting in required trust to build it. So it shouldn't be the case that we need every question answered in order to affirm or disaffirm. I think that we can also rely on the fact that we work with intelligent people. This vote is going to additional intelligent people that can read, and that can read the statements that we make that says yes or no, but here are some concerns. Just want to hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Jen.
Really quickly. So thank you for saying that. And I think just to clarify the process and let me know if I'm correct, but basically the intent tonight is to take that deliberation on these items, one, increasing maximum indebtedness, and two, increasing the boundary to include Russell Williams. And once that is done, we will compile that information, those votes, and then make a summary recommendation in the form of a letter similar to how the Portland Housing Bureau Oversight Committee did, and also the Project Working Group did, and present those items to the Prosper Board. So that is the intent behind this debate and discussion tonight. Yeah.
Great conversation. Thank you. Quentin?
And just to kind of talk a little bit more about what I was saying earlier, I think also, too, something that causes a little bit of kind of like a little bit of friction sometimes could be that, we're all in different places in terms of like our political understanding of what's going on and how different things impact like houselessness, race, and income and wealth inequality and stuff like that. Like even with the Housing Bureau, there were parts of it where I was reading where they were talking about, majority of the emphasis is going to be placed on renting as opposed to ownership. And that's something that, our community in particular has been locked out of, is economic inclusion and sort of having, being able to own our own homes in this neighborhood or wherever else. I don't think there's any neighborhood in Portland where certain communities can even afford to purchase a home. So that kind of stuff really matters, like the whole conversation about ownership, and as well as we don't really have anything quantifiable, like if the TIF district is expanded to include the area is expanded by 30 acres or whatever the case may be, we don't really have like stuff that's quantifiable. Like we're gonna, make sure that it goes to this many African-American businesses or homeowners or stuff like that. So it's just like a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of moving parts. Like some of us are at different spaces in what we know and understand. Others of us may not know or care to know about certain things. So that's where some of that comes from too.
Excellent, thank you. At this point, I think we have exhausted the conversation.
Can I just, one last? Dr. Holt? The chair said I could.
She's not the chair anymore. She's not the chair anymore.
Well,
But
I just want.
quickly, go ahead, quickly.
Real quickly, Quentin,
All right.
so for
Quickly.
our plan, just so you understand that, the plan for one of the pieces of property is for home ownership, the Water Bureau property, and we have dedicated significant, millions of dollars to, home ownership for folks, and, actually, I'm working on the report right now, that 84% of the people that have purchased homes from us have been African American. So that is a significant goal for the Housing Bureau and for the Northeast Oversight Committee. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that we are very aware of the gap in minority home ownership, and we're diligently working to increase that.
Thank you very much, ladies, for coming to the table. Appreciate it. Pretty much. Lovingly. Thanking you. Appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
So I just had a quick question and more something for us to consider, but I'm not even sure. But basically, and it has a lot of hypotheticals, so I'm sorry, bear with me. If the project working group if the property was to be included into the URA, and then if finances were given to the project's working group to study the potential for development, would that not, I'm posing the question, Jess, would that not set a precedent for that same courtesy to be extended to all properties in the URA? And do we have the finance, that just seems like it has the capacity to dry all our funds up. And so I just want something for you all to consider.
Okay, we are about to go to our vote, and what has been recommended earlier tonight was that the vote be done in an anonymous way. So we will go through that process in just a second. Let me just reiterate again some facts. It has been recommended for maximum indebtedness and for URA inclusion from the Northeast Housing Strategies. It has also been recommended for maximum indebtedness and inclusion in the URA from the Project Working Group. And now it's the time for this group to make its decision so that all of the recommendations can get to the Prosper Board. Fully understanding, again, facts. Prosper's board is making the determination. None of the groups make the decision. It is the decision of Prosper's board. So the deliberation, healthy, wants you to know in advance that the determination happens at a level beyond all the groups that are associated.
Sorry, really quick, following up on that process, then does Prosper have to bring that, their recommendation to, does the city need to get involved at all? Or is it's pretty much? Okay.
The district amendments fall within the purview of Prosper Portland. Maximum indebtedness is, as Lisa mentioned, about a year process that goes before City Council.
Okay, and then would the city council then also receive our letters? Or, the supporting sort of discussion?
I know it goes to Prosper. I don't know that it goes to the City Council. That may or may not include reference to. We'll attach everything. Okay, perfect. So this is how we're going to vote. Yes.
Was that a yes?
That was. She said she will include that Prosper's board includes in their package all the recommendations, all the information around maximum indebtedness. Prosper's board makes the determination around property inclusion.
Without community-based influence? I mean,
This is the community-based influence. This is the community-based influence.
But you said that they are the main decision.
Yes, that's always been the case.
Okay, with community-based influence.
This is the community-based
We are the
influence.
community.
Yes.
Without the real community, the total community.
You represent the whole purpose of bringing this together. was that you represent the community. And so we're talking about the North-Northeast Community Oversight Committee. We're talking about the Project Working Group, and we're talking about the North-Northeast CDI. So that's representation of thousands of people.
Okay, without necessarily them being totally aware of their input.
I
Just leave it there.
gotcha. Okay.
Like, I think I understand the hesitation to just like throw a vote out there and not exactly know what's gonna happen to it. And so is it fair to say that we're gonna compile the votes and then draft a letter that reflects those votes, and then everyone will have access to see the letter, comment on it before we formally submit it? Is that fair? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, regarding maximum indebtedness, we'll begin with that one. If you are for. Okay. You've got one piece of paper?
Dr. Hall, if you don't mind, the intention was that we would be publicly voting, and it was requested that we anonymously vote. Sorry, I'm tired. So if you wouldn't mind, on your piece of paper, will you write maximum indebtedness in your vote? And will you write increasing the ICURA in your vote? Diana and I will count your votes so that one person on the committee is counting the vote as well as one person representing Prosper or Diana. That would be helpful so that we can read them.
Also, am I remembering correctly that the project working group also had a yes, a no, and an abstain? Do we want to also open that option up to our committee?
Yes, thanks for the reminder.
Okay, cool.
So for each one, you've got three options.
Yes, and Dr. Holt, will you just state those options again?
The options are for maximum indebtedness, yes. Abstain, no. So yes, or I don't want to vote, or no, I don't think we should increase maximum indebtedness. And then for inclusion of the Williams and Russell project into the URA, the same. Yes, I support it. I abstain, or no, I don't support it. And you're welcome to put your name on your paper or not. Maximum indebtedness to include, amend the URA, including the Williams and Russell site. Great conversation tonight, guys. Thank you. Quentin.
I was just gonna ask, how will like an abstain vote or be counted, or like what percentage of us have to vote a certain way in order for it to be yayed or nayed? Like, how does that work?
This is going, all the votes will be reflected and tallied. So we're gonna submit a letter of a basis of our understanding that hopefully reflects all the concerns that we have. We'll put that in a letter. We'll put at the bottom of each category how many yes votes, how many no votes, how many abstain votes, and then we're just gonna present it to be considered by the board.
Yes, that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
And Michael, in order to capture your vote, if you'd be kind enough, you can't vote via email. Yes, you can talk to Diana.
The moderator, Doctor, what I prefer to do for the meeting tonight is sort of abstain from voting, so that I would definitely prefer to align myself with the majority of the vote. Are we going to know the voting numbers tonight? So will we know what
We are
people
going.
voted
Yes,
on?
our intent is to tally the information and then share that out before we are done. So we got. Thank you.
Yeah. So then I will abstain from voting, so that only if there is a tie. Is that possible?
Quite possible. We will know in a moment. 1 second. So we're going to tally. Thank you, Michael. Hold on. Do we have them all? We don't have them all. We don't have them all. One more. No, we're done with this conversation. Yeah. Yes, we are going to be. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the conversation. Very good. I'm feeling like we should have Jeopardy music playing. I'm feeling like we should have Jeopardy music playing in the background. All right. Here we go. Joanna, tell us, what do we know?
Okay.
Attention, everyone, please. Order in the court. Order.
Okay, so for the maximum indebtedness, we have 5 yes, 2 abstain, and 2 noes. And for the URA amendment, we have 4 yes, 2 abstain, and 3 noes.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for your time and your participation tonight, your energy. This was healthy, and we have our next. Yes, Michael. 1 second.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joanne. And thank you. Congratulations on the new co-chair. I look forward to meeting him.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing you. We're going to make sure you're in the loop on all things. Yes, Gwen.
Just so that we're all clear, both votes passed with a yes, so that everybody knows that. And I just want to thank this committee so much for all of your hard work, and I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it. Our next meeting then is scheduled for March 11th. Is that correct? Right here, 6 to 8 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your hard work. Thanks to the co-chairs who served this past year. Thank you very much. And excited for the new co-chairs. Oh, public comments. Well, you can go. You can go. Yes.
Good evening. I'm here. I didn't request to be put on the agenda. Didn't realize you guys were meeting tonight. I thought you were meeting next week. But several months ago, Dana and I came to you about the ADU money, and we've not received a response. And as we're going in front of council in a few weeks, we really need for you all to give us a recommendation or a response. If you want the $1.8 million back, fine. I mean, we're not gonna, fight you for it, but I just need a yes or a no or something. With this week would be most helpful.
This week, okay.
Don't you need it?
It was given to us to do ADUs with, and since we decided not to do ADU program, we had made a recommendation to split the money with you to put more into home ownership down payment assistance, and we never got a response back from that recommendation. So if all the money, you want the whole 1.8 back, that's fine. If you want to split it, that's fine. But I just need an answer.
Gwen, thank you.
I thought
When
we
you had
were-
your hand, and then Maurice.
Oh, sorry.
This is a wonderful opportunity for the existing co-chairs, the new co-chairs, to talk with the outgoing co-chairs, relay the information to their satisfaction so that they have the information and get a response back to you, and I would be happy to initiate that.
She said by Friday.
Yeah.
Maurice?
And I thought we already had voted on this in a previous meeting, so.
They didn't get the information.
Well, we might want to look at our previous notes or recordings because I thought that this was already discussed and voted.
Do you remember what the vote was?
It was for the money to come back to our committee.
Okay. Who could take lead on?
I can take a lead on looking at it. Do you remember which the month that you guys voted? October. Okay, I'll check on that tomorrow and let you know.
So I just want to clarify that you guys had a preliminary vote before we came with our recommendation. And so then we came with a recommendation, and that you guys were supposed to vote as a whole group after we came with the recommendation. So since that time, we've not received any information back. So if you want to go with the initial vote, that's fine. If you want the money back, that's fine. I just need an answer so I can include it in my report.
I don't think we need to go with any initial votes. I think this is I'm speaking for myself, a perfect opportunity to allow the new chairs to lead and to have that information. So.
All right. I'll let you guys. Hello. Let me remind you of something real quickly if I can. Committee members. Hi. Let me just remind you that as a public body, any deliberation or things that lead to decision have to be done publicly. So they cannot be done privately. They cannot be done through email. Any decisions or discussion that leads to determination has to be done publicly. So if you're going to have conversation, as a public body, and it's one of the trusts that you hold, and not by any. We just went through this yesterday with the city attorney, an hour's worth of onboarding a group around these wonderful opportunities to be officials in this capacity. Just so you know, you hold public trust by sitting in the seat. So I want you to be aware, because at any point, someone watching could say, hey, they're making decisions on their own. We don't know what's going on. I don't want that to happen by any stretch. So, yes.
I was wondering, when are we going to be able to meet with the different subcommittees and kind of get involved? Because I haven't heard of any kind of meetings with the subcommittees or anything like that, and I was interested in being a member of a couple of them.
Gwen?
So you should have received an email inviting you to the subcommittee meeting for the CLG and the actual session that we held to make decisions. I sent emails to, so I'll make sure I have your correct email address so that you get those.
And we're recruiting for the Cultural Business Hub Subcommittee, so
Okay.
I will send you those emails.
All right.
All right.
I just also want to establish that as the new co-chair, you will be reviewing
Excuse me, Maurice and Ebony, please. Thank you.
the work of the prior subcommittees. I think it's fair for you to determine if you and Ebony feel like the structure of the past subcommittees, the 5 subcommittees that correlated with the goals, was an effective way of managing this group and managing our work in subcommittees, or if you think it should just be 2 subcommittees, or if it should be more subcommittees. So it's more than just participating in subcommittees now. You need to actually structure them and make sure that they're effective.
There's going to be an onboarding process.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. We will talk through all of that. And you've got 2 great co-chairs who've been a part of the committee that'll help onboard you. Are we all clear for tonight?
You guys will be
Okay.
I'll be contacting you guys so we can meet with Dr. Holt, myself, and we can talk about the next steps.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.